The orchard south of Bitterbridge shimmered beneath a sky the hue of hammered silver, the pears fat on their boughs, the air thick with bees, and yet Renly Baratheon could find no sweetness there. Dawn's hush pressed against the bright green banners rippling above the pavilions of his makeshift court, and in that soft hour, when battle seemed only a rumor carried by restless larks, he spoke with Loras about boots, bridles, and the number of swords that might be coaxed from Tarly land. Renly laughed easily, loved easily, and convinced men they would win easily. The rose-gold dawn stoked his confidence, and he believed the realm itself might yet bend toward his convivial warmth and his broad, Baratheon grin. Yet the seeds of dusk had already taken root in King's Landing. Cersei Lannister rose before the first bell of the sept rang, her hair spilling around her like a banner of woven sunlight, her green eyes narrowed to chips of emerald. She watched moon-pale gulls wheel above the Blackwater and thought of Renly's broad shoulders, Renly's honeyed voice, Renly's bright banners swelling like summer sails across the reach. One goosequill scratch after another, ravens flapped from Maegor's holdfast, carrying her honey-laced courtesies and barbed invitations to the distant corners of the realm. But sweet words were rope, and Renly would hang himself on them soon enough if she pulled at the proper knot. Maester Pycelle, stooped beneath the weight of indecision, shuffled into her solar with a silver-stoppered vial hidden inside the sleeve of his maester's chain. "A rare distillation, your grace," he croaked, "extracted from leaves that bloom only upon the Jade Sea's misted cliffs. A single drop can still a stag in mid-leap." Cersei's red mouth curved like the crescent of a sickle. "Then let us test its reach upon a stag gone astray." The game required a player who loved Renly's laughter, a soul foolish or faithful enough to hover at his elbow. Cersei found that soul in Ser Colin of Greenpools, a gaunt knight who had once served Robert and still nursed broken pride and older debts. She wrote to him of pardon and posterity, of lands restored and honors renewed, and closed her letter with a promise that the king's widow would remember loyalty as another queen never had. Colin's answer came back upon oily parchment, only 4 words, trembling, "I remain the realm's servant." And so the vial began its long journey, slipping from Cersei's silk sleeve to Pycelle's, from Pycelle's to the hidden pocket of a courier's plain cloak, from King's Landing's rancid alleys to Green Lowland's velvet with clover. It rode beneath the courier's heart, stoppered tightly, like a splinter of midnight sliding through dawn's wide-open eye. Renly's camp swelled by the hour. Summer wine ran like laughter beneath the canvas eaves, and small folk gathered beyond the lines, whispering that this king smiled as Robert once had and would conquer as Robert never could. Horses stamped the trampled grass. Grooms cursed. Bakers wept for want of flour, and still more lords rode in to bend the knee at Renly's broad table. The Tyrells embraced spectacle as a child embraces sunlight. Lord Mace waddled about pretending command, cheeks flushed with pride and drink, while Ser Garland kept the shields ranked true and the lines unbroken. Marjorie, pearls in her coffee-dark hair, moved among the gardener's knights, naming each man, praising each palm's calluses, turning their devotion from gold to glory with a single slow look. She spoke of joining her fate to Renly's, sealing rose and stag with a kiss that would make the realm bloom again. Beneath her velvet courtesy, her eyes measured every corner of Renly's soul, seeking some hairline crack that whispered of doubt. Loras, meanwhile, placed his silver spurs upon Renly's council table, grin sharp as a razor. "Storm's End cannot hold the Tyrell host and your own. My sister will reign, yet first she must be your queen. Give me the word. The Rose Road awaits your trumpets." "Soon," Renly murmured, pouring another cup. "A perfect moment ripens like fruit. If you pluck it too early, you taste only bitterness." Outside, tents sprouted like bright mushrooms, and each flicker of lamplight sketched shadows on canvas walls. Songs rose, the lash of Casterly Rock, the night that ended Targaryen fire. Yet Renly favored a quieter tune, hummed off-key, while Loras teased him for the flat notes and feather-light touch upon the lute strings. They were lovers of the dusk, shadows fused to a single flame, certain the dawn would obey their design. None guessed the courier had already slipped between the pavilions, carving a path through the butter-yellow lantern glow. Ser found Renly in his war tent studying the map spread beneath flickering torches. The knight's face was parchment thin, but his voice carried the steady timbre of a confessor guiding a sick man toward absolution. He offered Renly a wineskin. "From a vineyard near Tarth," he lied. "Blue grapes kissed by sea mist. I thought your grace might need respite from the reach's honey." Renly accepted, laughing. "At last, a man who does not serve me roses." He drank deep and wiped his lips with the back of a broad hand. The night settled around them like winter fur. He spoke of sails massing upon the Mander, of ravens from White Harbor hinting northern loyalty, of Baratheon banners soon to unfurl across the neck. He drank again, throat working, smile widening. In King's Landing, Cersei played at piety, descending the Sept steps by candlelight, kneeling before alabaster saints, murmuring prayers that tasted like ash. She knelt because watchers must see. She prayed because watchers must believe. Yet each whispered title she offered the mother felt like flaying a coin from the skin of her tongue. Only when she rose did her true litany begin. Be swift, be sure, be quiet. Her pulse counted off a distant heartbeat. Renly's. Morning cracked apart the sky, and with it Renly's bowels unraveled. At first he blamed the previous night's stew, for fish may sour and oats may spoil. Yet the pain worsened by the hoofbeat. He clutched his belly as if it might burst with vipers, staggering from his tent, jaw clenched tight enough to crack a stone. Loras and Brienne rushed to his side. A maester's apprentice chanted prayers, and Renly's eyes, so recently merry, clouded like a pond disturbed by storm. Fever followed pain, a hot wind scalding his vision, until every shadow danced with torches he did not see. Within the hour, his skin was the color of chalk, lips cracked, and he whispered Marjorie's name but found only salt upon his tongue. Loras knelt, fingers trembling against the damask spread. "We need Grand Maester Melos from King's Landing." "No," Brienne answered, voice raw. "Melos would arrive too late. Cut the belly, bleed the poison, drain the rot." The maester's apprentice paled. "He is no boar-stricken on the hunt." Cersei's vial achieved its promise. A single drop, that was enough. It coursed through the king's veins, turned his blood to sludge, shredded his gut like serrated glass. In her solar, Cersei stood at the arrow slit, feeling the Blackwater's breeze comb her golden hair. Her smile was a woman's dagger, slim, shining, oiled with triumph. Renly lived 3 days between agony and delirium. In his lucid moments he demanded his armor, commanding banners to form ranks, yet his body refused to rise. Loras wept when he thought none watched. Marjorie clutched her Septa's hand. Lord Randall Tarly cursed the indecision that chained so many swords to a dying king. Only Brienne remained silent, guarding the pavilion door like a granite statue carved by grief. Catelyn Stark arrived upon the second day, banners of the dire wolf quartered beside the flaming heart of Renly's newest convert, Ser Courtenay Penrose. She found the camp in turmoil, grooms sharpening swords they might soon point at one another, Tyrell knights whispering of hidden debts, Stormlanders recalling the oath they once swore to Stannis. Catelyn passed them all and stepped into the scented darkness of Renly's tent. She saw the pallor that had conquered his once ruddy cheeks, the sweat darkening his hair like ink upon parchment. "Your Grace," she whispered, though the king did not answer. At the edge of the cot, Loras looked up, desperate. "He loved you as a sister of the storm," he rasped. "Speak to him. Draw him back." Catelyn touched Renly's brow. It burned. She spoke of wind upon Shipbreaker Bay, of Baratheon laughter ringing across Storm's End's basalt halls. She reminded him that his brothers had quarreled but never surrendered, that Robert had clawed free from every snare set by fate, that Stannis stood immovable as nightfall upon a sailor's shore. Her words fluttered against Renly's ear like moth wings, too light to shift the darkness. By the fourth dawn, he lay still. The storm crow song fell silent, and the Reach's banners drooped like flowers left too long in drought. Renly Baratheon, king of summer promises, was dead. News galloped north and south, east and west. Each hoofbeat cracked alliances. The green of Tyrell, the gold of Lannister, the black stag of Baratheon. All whirled like painted leaves caught in a dragon's breath. At Bitterbridge, chaos bloomed. Lord Mace shouted that a new king must be crowned. Renly's crown should rest upon the head nearest his ashes. Himself, of course, or perhaps his daughters. But eyes slid toward Highgarden's coffers, not his graying jowls. In the hush that followed, Loras drew his sword. "No blossoms root in poisoned soil," he snarled. "I will have the killer." Swords rasped from scabbards all along the Tyrell lines. Some pointed at Brienne, who knelt beside the shrouded corpse, her blue cloak soaked in grief. Others searched the faces of Stormlanders now muttering Stannis' name. Yet Loras's gaze turned ever south, toward King's Landing, toward the lioness he had once courted with honeyed words and promises of rosewater courts. His heart would not forget the scent of Cersei's roses, nor the subtle sting upon their thorns. Catelyn slipped from the camp with Brienne, carrying shattered vows back toward Robb's war. Behind them, the Tyrell host shivered upon the cusp of new allegiance. Some bent the knee to Stannis' envoy, Ser Eldon Estermont, believing duty chained them to the Elder Stag. Others, wary of iron laws and older fires, answered Mace's cry for vengeance and gold. By the time banners flapped anew, the Reach trembled like a field scorched by unseen lightning. In the Red Keep, bells tolled for a king who had never worn its crown. Cersei draped the throne room in scarlet and gold, feigning grief behind a gauze veil that hid her smile from all but the keenest onlookers. Joffrey, perched upon the Iron Throne, barely feigned sorrow at all. When Pycelle announced Renly's death, the boy king clapped once, delighted, before glancing sideways to gauge his mother's approval. She gave him none. The game was not yet won. The small council gathered that night, its chairs arranged like pieces upon a Cyvasse board. Littlefinger watched candles gutter, counting fortunes yet to be made. Varys listened to footsteps echo in corridors, his soft hands folded like a spider waiting for dew. Tyrion Lannister, fresh from counting crossbows and thieves, eyed his sister with weary suspicion. "Poison," Pycelle intoned, subtle as rain upon cracked stone. Tyrion raised a cup, swirling the wine, sniffing it. A curious craft. Our late king's stomach was sworn to a dozen cooks. Which one betrayed him? How any of this concerns the capital, I cannot guess, Cersei replied, smoothing the damask on her sleeve. The Tyrells must look to their own kitchens. Must they? Tyrion leaned back. When blades are drawn in the Reach, the roses may turn toward the Red Keep for sunlight and shelter. Sooner than you think. Cersei's smile did not falter. Yet behind her gaze, calculations shifted. She had plucked a verdant weed, Renly, and now the garden might flourish or strangle. The Tyrells' vast grain stores fed half the realm. Their horses carried gold-clad knights. Their daughter, a maiden as poised as any queen, might yet mend a crack in the realm or widen it into a chasm. Cersei weighed each possibility as the candle gutted and Tyrion's laughter flickered along the chamber walls. At Highgarden, Marjorie knelt before her grandmother, Olenna Redwine, beneath a trellis of blood-red climbing roses. The Queen of Thorns plucked petals as though counting sins. We should never have pinned our hopes on such a bright-feathered rooster, the old woman muttered. Too loud in the dawn, too quick to crow. But he loved me, Marjorie whispered. Her hands trembled only slightly, petals caught in a summer breeze. He would have made me queen. Girl, queens are made in forges we tend ourselves, not by strutting peacocks. Olenna snapped the last rose from its stem. The lioness thinks Renly's fall uncages her cubs. We will tame those cats yet. So letters hissed from Highgarden like arrows from a treetop ambush. Some dipped in honey, others in pitch. One reached Cersei's hand, edges still warm from a wax seal. Within, Marjorie wrote of grief so vast it forged unity, of fields wilting without the crown's gentle dew, of hearts longing to beat as one realm again. It was an offer draped in mourning cloth. Join rose to crown, and the realm might bloom beneath young King Joffrey's reign. Cersei read while sunlight striped her lap. She traced Marjorie's slanted script, hearing a girl's breath between lines, tasting ambition in each curve. She burned the letter and summoned Lord Baelish. Meanwhile, Stannis gathered strength. The Stormlands bent, slow but sure, like saplings coaxed by winter gales. Storm's End's garrison opened its gates to his banner once Lord Penrose fell. Thrown from the battlements during a quarrel none could quite explain. Melisandre's red shadow towered beside the Lord of Dragonstone. Her eyes glowed like embers behind a veil of nightfire smoke. News of Renly's death reached Stannis as he paced the ramparts of Storm's End, the tide beating the rocks below. He did not smile, yet some tension left his shoulders. "Justice claims all men," he murmured to Davos. "Some by sword, some by storm, some by the quiet drip of unseen venom." Davos frowned. "A bitter end for a young king." "A traitor to the rightful king," Stannis corrected, though his gaze lingered on the horizon where dawn bled into sea mist. "Yet even traitors deserve true swords, not maidens' poisons." Melisandre spoke then, voice silken. "The night weeps red for wasted fire, yet each death feeds the Lord's design. One usurper falls, the other shall follow." Davos felt cold despite the southern sun. He thought of Cersei's golden hair and the rumors carried on gull wings toward Dragonstone, that she plotted with a brush dipped in venom, painting the realm to suit her sons. Back in King's Landing, Littlefinger rode through the mud churned by port wagons, the air thick with fish rot and summer dust. He carried a secret deeper than gold. Cersei had tasked him with shepherding Marjorie to the capital, binding Rose to Lion. Yet whispers reached him within the hour. Tyrell horsemen had brushed the outskirts of Bitterbridge, parleying with Stannis's envoys. The wind itself seemed undecided, stirring banners then dropping silent, as if the gods withheld breath. Littlefinger contemplated opportunity. A rose might bloom beside any crown, given the proper soil. Joffrey's crown lay heavy and uncertain, tarnished by mad whims and boyish cruelties. Stannis's was forged from iron resolve, but iron can be brittle. Where would Marjorie's petals find gentlest sunlight? Wherever gold and titles grew thickest. He dined with Lady Lisa's letters unopened in his saddlebag, telling himself that no man fails so long as doors remain ajar. At dusk, he summoned a scribe to dash off missives to both Storm's End and Highgarden, offering each a glimpse of what might be won if they reached for the same shining prize, while promising Cersei he had eyes only for her chosen plan. Across the Reach, plague of suspicion spread faster than any cough. Victuallers withheld grain from Tyrell granaries, fearing Lannister taxes. Hedge knights banded together, swearing they would not bleed for a queen who killed kings with a cup. Merchants whispered of gold dragons minted without proper weight. Lion-headed on both sides, valued only in King's Landing's crowded streets. Each rumor wound around the next until commerce itself slowed like a heart starved of blood. Cersei summoned the City Watch's commanders, doubling patrols, stringing new heads upon the doomed spikes atop the gatehouses. Rapers, thieves, a baker who hoarded flour. Yet for every tongue silenced, two more wagged in alley shadows. Children singing skipping rhymes now ended each stanza with a gasp. Renly's last breath, echoing down clay gutters. Tyrion prowled the maester's rookery that twilight, reading raven scrolls before Pycelle could limber his trembling fingers around the seals. He saw the pattern: poison, lioness, rose in revolt. He drank deep, grimaced at the sweetness. "If I cough my lungs upon the rushes tomorrow," he mused, "sing me a livelier dirge than Renly's." Bronze spat between broken teeth. "If you choke, I'm halfway to Old Town with your purse before you hit the floor." In Highgarden's moon-drenched catacombs, Marjorie lit a single red candle before Renly's stone likeness. She poured wine upon cold granite lips and whispered, "Forgive me, the game continues." Her fingers brushed her morning gown's hem, black lace sewn with silver thorns. Behind her, Olenna stood with a lapful of parchment, each sheet an offer from a would-be king or cunning lord. "Grief is a hammer, child. Use it." Marjorie straightened, shoulders squared as though the rose carved on her bodice were iron. Then let the hammer fall. She turned her gaze east, imagining the forbidding cliffs of Dragonstone, the crimson shadows flickering there. If Stannis could set aside his stern gods long enough to wed a rose, then perhaps the realm might still know peace. Yet peace earned on such terms would smell less of bloom than of smoke and salt. Quill scratched. Olenna looked up, sharp eyes glittering. We move at dawn. The dawn that touched King's Landing that same morning found Cersei in her solar, listening to a cask of arbor gold uncork with a sigh like wind through crypt doors. Her chamberlain bowed. From Lord Redwine, a gift in remembrance. She poured 2 cups, one for herself, tasted first by the taster who had replaced every prior taster. Each man dismissed lest gold slip into traitorous pockets. The second cup waited. She rang a bell. Joffrey entered, scowling at the interruption of crossbow practice. What? Wine for courage. She gave him the second cup. You will need it soon. She spoke then of marriage alliances, of strength drawn from flowering fields and golden harvests. She told him of Marjorie's sweet smile and cunning mind. Joffrey rolled his eyes. I have my betrothed, he said. The Stark bitch. Cersei palmed the cup, fingers white. Sansa is hostage, not queen. You will wed the Tyrell girl. Her father brings grain. Her brother brings knights. Her grandmother brings rumor's leash in one hand and a purse in the other. The realm will see you with rose petals at your feet and forget the blood you spilled upon them. Joffrey sneered. I will not be ordered. She slapped him. The cup shattered. Wine streaked the stone floor like spilled heart's blood. Joffrey stared, wide-eyed, one hand to his cheek. Cersei's voice lowered to a whisper more terrible than any shout. I am T. He ordered. You are the crown, but I am the sword. He spun away, but he would obey. Fear tasted sharper than sweet arbor gold. At Bitterbridge's smoldering remnants, Loras Tyrell knelt before a grave dug too shallow. The king's body had been returned to Storm's End for stone tombs, yet the ground remembered. He pressed a gloved hand to the soil. I will breathe only vengeance until the lioness chokes upon her own sweet rot. Garland laid a hand upon his brother's shoulder. You seek justice that may never fill your lungs. Then I will drown empty. Loras rose, eyes hard. Leave me. He turned his horse west, 10 knights behind him, and vanished among the hedges. Some whispered that he rode for Casterly Rock itself, dagger hidden beneath a bunch of silken prime roses. Others claimed he sought the faceless men of Bravos, forging vengeance in coin of unimaginable worth. None knew for certain. But where Loras passed, rumors followed like wolves, and each rumor bit at the lioness's heels. Cersei felt those bites. Letters from the Westerlands told of footpads stabbing Lannister couriers, of reachmen buying up grain before it reached the city, of minor lords promising fealty to Stannis even as they traded wine with the Rock. She summoned Ser Adam Marbrand, commanding patrols doubled upon the Gold Road. Yet each patrol meant fewer swords on the capital's walls, and Stannis's fleet, fattened by Stormlander oars, beat toward the Blackwater mouth. Tyrion presented his secret scheme. Wildfire casks beneath the river, chain across the water, sell sails armed with Greek fire stolen from Karth. Cersei's patience frayed like worn velvet. Your pet alchemists gamble with the city, she hissed. My gamble is the city, Tyrion replied. Unless you know a kinder poison to slip beneath Stannis's tongue. The word poison settled like a blush upon her cheek, faint and swift, gone before Tyrion could mark it. He left her contemplating 3 red-stained ravens perched upon the sill. One from Pike, one from Riverrun, and one sealed by a hand wearing a sapphire ring, Olenna Redwine's signet. The Queen of Thorns offered marriage. She offered grain. She offered an end to whispering tongues, if Cersei would name Marjorie queen. Cersei exhaled, slow, careful. A lioness may share the carcass with hyenas only so long as her cubs feed first. Yet to refuse could starve them all. She summoned Qyburn from the dungeons, handing him the shattered shards of Renly's poisoned cup. Make me a draft that brings courage without folly, she said, for a boy king and a realm teetering upon wolves' jaws. In Dragonstone's shadowed hall, Melisandre knelt before Stannis, crimson robes pooling like living coals. "One usurper yet lives," she murmured. "The golden-haired queen weaves silk snares. Offer her to flame. The night will swallow her screams, and the dawn will herald your reign." Stannis's hands gripped the arms of his chair. He measured honor against victory, weighing each as though they were stones pressing upon his soul. "I will not assassinate a woman. She would not extend such courtesy. She is lioness, not king. Joffrey wears the crown." Melisandre's red eyes glowed. "The boy is her shadow. Cut the light that casts it. The shadow fades." Davos shifted uneasily. He saw the line drawn. Murder in darkness. The same black art that had spilled Renly's life upon a pavilion floor. The realm must see justice done in daylight, else they will whisper it was sorcery again. Stannis's face pulled taut. "Then daylight it shall be. We sail for the Blackwater upon the next tide." Summer broke upon the city walls in a fever of heat. Rats scurried beneath market stalls, gnawing melon rinds. Septons preached a famine sure to come if fields burned and rivers choked with corpses. Fisherfolk claimed they saw red comets in the sky at dusk. Omens of dragons rising, kings falling, queens drowning in blood-warm tide. Cersei listened from her balcony, sipping the courage Qyburn brewed. Joffrey stood beside her, decked in crimson velvet, eyes glazed. The potion made his tongue heavy, his nerves slack, allowed him to speak soft pleasantries to the assembled courtiers without sudden flares of petulance. It did nothing for his cruelty, only masked it. Yet for a night, the court wore smiles like borrowed jewels, praising a boy king become, at last, tolerable. Cersei watched Margaery's litter creep through the gates at last, rose-strewn curtains parting to reveal a queen-to-be draped in mourning black trimmed with gold. The girl dismounted, curtsied, eyes humble yet unafraid. Olenna stirred behind her, a shepherd guiding lamb to lion's den, or perhaps guiding lion into lamb's clever claws. They dined beneath 1,000 candles. Joffrey, emboldened by the potion, praised Margaery's beauty, her courage and grief, her loyalty to the crown. Margaery, sipping only watered wine, lamented Renly's passing but spoke of duty's call. Around them, lords measured each graceful nod, each fingertip's artful brush against a goblet, as though reading prophecy upon palm lines. Tyrion watched too, counting possibilities. He read the slight tremor in Cersei's cup each time Margaery's voice rang clear. He saw the way Olenna's smile never reached her eyes. He drank, and he waited for cracks to widen. That night, within Maegor's dark corridors, Sansa Stark attended the queen's bidding. She carried a tray of candied figs, her wrists delicate as bird bones. Cersei waved her nearer, absently brushing Sansa's arm. "You shall soon be free of my son's affections," she murmured, words warm as a viper's kiss. Sansa's breath caught. Hope flared, sharp and bright, too bright, perhaps. Cersei pressed on. "A northern girl has no place in the south. Better to return home before winter deepens." Sansa bowed, the tray trembling. She looked to Tyrion across the hall, his mismatched gaze already upon her. He shook his head, imperceptible but clear. "Do not trust the lioness." She carried the figs away, heart thudding. Days folded like pressed petals. The Tyrells took rooms overlooking the river. The Reach's cooks filled the castle with scents of mint and honey. Singers rehearsed ballads blending stag and rose now turned to lion and rose. Everywhere, color bloomed again. Soft greens and dusty pinks pushing against crimson banners, as if a new spring vied with lingering summer. Cersei allowed it, watching, weighing, waiting. Then word came like a rending drum. Stannis' fleet had crossed the Blackwater Rush, sails dark as storm clouds, beating up the bay. The city erupted in shouts. Bells clanged. Smithies hammered. Children scurried into nooks. Tyrion's wildfire casks were loaded onto rat-eaten skiffs. Chains groaned across river pilings. Margaery stood atop the crenellations, wind whipping her veil, her blue eyes tracing the enemy's slow advance. Cersei joined her, side by side, 2 queens, yet only one with crown. "Pray the boy holds," she said, meaning Joffrey. "Pray the men follow. Pray the gods watch." "I pray," Margaery answered, "that the realm survives the games kings and queens play." Below them, on mud banks, bronze sellswords hoisted bronze shields. Across the water, Stannis' galleys gathered like sharks scenting blood. Between them, the blackwater glittered with hidden death, wildfire swirling beneath sunset's burnished reflection. Cersei turned to Margaery. "If King's Landing burns, no rose will ever bloom here again." Margaery's gaze was steel. "Then we defend it together, queen beside queen." Night fell violet and trembling. Fires spotted the river like fallen stars. Tyrion mounted his horse, half-helmed, half-drunk, brandishing an axe that seemed comically large in his small hand. Joffrey, heart steady with Qyburn's elixir, shouted orders from the Red Keep's upper rampart before Cersei dragged him inside. She would not risk him to arrow or panic. Across the battlements, Margaery barked commands to reach archers newly sworn to Lannister gold. Her gown belted short. She moved like a commander born, not a maiden promised. Loras had once ridden at Renly's side, vowing they would carve the realm between them like a festival pie. Now he knelt beneath his sister's new banner, ready to carve for her alone. His sword flashed green in wildfire glow. The first galley burst upon hidden casks, green night consuming deck, mast, and screaming men. The oily flames spread, licking at hulls, spitting emerald tongues skyward. Stannis' fleet flinched, yet pressed on, oars churning ash-flecked water. Drums pounded, horns brayed. The chain across the river snapped taut, trapping half the attackers amid burning sea. Tyrion led sorties through the soot-choked alleyways, chopping at knights who breached the mud gate. Sellswords died screaming. Noble sons drowned in streets awash with molten pitch. On the ramparts, arrows hissed, and above it all, green fire painted the night with the sickly glow of prophecy undone. Within the holdfast, Cersei paced. Qyburn's tonic dulled her fear but sharpened anger. She thought of Renly's final breaths, of Tyrell grain wagons, of Margaery's clear morning laugh. She clutched her youngest child, Tommen, to her breast. If the city fell, she would not let him see the inside of Stannis' dungeons. A slender vial waited in her sleeve, severance between life and slavery. Still, she prayed to every god she had ever mocked. Let the lion roar one day more. Dawn cracked, smoke-choked and silent. Stannis' banners lay in tattered heaps upon charred decks. The king himself had been pulled back to his flagship, bleeding from a wound that split helm and hope. The Tyrell relief host, led by Lord Randall Tarley and armored in fresh rose-sworn steel, marched up the Rose Road at the crucial hour, trumpets blaring. The lions held, the roses flanked, the stag folded. When trumpets fell silent, the battlefield reeked of burned flesh and pitch. Vultures circled. Cersei stepped onto the ramparts, cloak whipped by wind. Margaery stood beside her, cheeks streaked with soot, jaw set. They looked upon ruin and saw victory's seeds. Cersei's voice broke the hush. "The realm owes you gratitude, Lady Margaery, and I owe you an answer." "Then give it," Margaery said, meeting the queen's gaze without flinch. Cersei drew a breath tasting of ash and rose oil. "You shall wed the king." The wind stole nothing of that promise. Below, soldiers cheered. Somewhere in the distance, bells tolled again. This time for union, not death. Yet union forged from poison and fire can bind as tight as any vow carved in stone. Renly's ghost lingered nonetheless. Each time Cersei lifted her cup, she felt a phantom burn at the back of her throat. Each time she saw the Reach's banners fluttering on the walls, she wondered which breeze would carry whispers of her deed to every ear. Her courtiers bowed lower now, but some bows quivered. Loras stood at feasts, eyes hollow, applauding his sister's betrothal with a smile pinned like a corpse's grin. Brienne served as Margaery's sworn shield, her blue cloak a constant reminder of the king she could not save. Her gaze never touched Cersei, yet Cersei felt its chill at her spine. In Dragonstone's silent halls, Stannis brooded upon defeat, knuckles white upon a chart of the realm. "The Red Woman failed," he muttered. Melisandre knelt, unbowed. "The night is long. One battle is but a breath." She spoke of shadows yet to be cast, crowns yet to burn, lions yet to choke upon their own prey. Stannis listened, jaw set, and he plotted anew. For a king may lose a war yet win a throne if he but endures longer than his enemy's mercy. And so the realm spun on. Poison's drop lingered in blood and soil. Tyrell roses now twined crown and throne. The lioness smiled beneath golden mane. Yet every heart in Westeros beat a fraction faster, waiting for the next draft to slip across lips, for the next wildfire bloom, for summer's last flower to wither beneath winter's prowling shadow. For the game continued, its pieces set aflame, its board soaked in wine and blood alike, and every victor's toast tasted, in the end, of poison. All night the Blackwater stank of the dead. Dawn came reluctantly, a pale orange bruise behind drifting banks of smoke, and King's Landing blinked awake like a survivor who cannot believe that breath still fills his lungs. Sailors shoveled charred planks from quays slick with green pitch. Septons murmured blessing after blessing above the heaps of men they could not possibly name, and in every alley women knelt with buckets, flinging seawater across scorched stone to keep the embers from lighting once more. Beneath the red keep's crimson banners, the city tried to remember the shape of peace, yet the very air still tasted of iron and fear. Cersei Lannister stood at the balustrade of Maegor's Holdfast, robe cinched tight against the dawn chill, though heat rolled from the river like exhaled breath from a slumbering dragon. Below, masons argued over which breach in the outer wall deserved repair first. Goldcloaks frog-marched a line of half-starved thieves toward the gallows on Visenya's hill, and small folk queued to receive the almoner's thin barley gruel promised by the Queen Regent in celebration of victory. A steward recited casualty numbers, but the words slid past her like river water past a stone. Thousands here, hundreds there. Yet Renly's death had required but a single measured drop. Fewer strokes, she mused, carved the deepest scars. Behind her the painted doors parted. Tyrion limped in on a cane, face still half-hidden beneath linen wrappings that stank faintly of milk of the poppy. He bowed with exaggerated flourish. "My compliments, dear sister." A triumph all around. Half the fleet burnt, a third of the city in cinders, famine nipping at our heels. And yet, wonder of wonders, the throne remains precisely where you left it. She did not flinch. The throne remains because lions do not flee from fire. Lions seldom set their own manes alight either. Tyrion thumped the cane, leaning closer. Stannis retreats to lick his wounds, but he will not bleed out easily. And the Reach is here within these walls, drinking our arbor gold. One misstep and Mace Tyrell will remember he commands bread enough to starve us thrice over. I have offered bread of another sort. Cersei's eyes followed a train of wagons inching up the hill, each piled with sacks marked with green roses. Marjorie will marry Joffrey come the new moon. Their harvest will feed our cubs. Tyrion's good eye glittered. Let us hope the harvest has not been watered with something sharp and colorless. She turned, lip curling. I am no fool. Indeed not. Merely a gardener pruning rival blossoms. He straightened. You asked to see me? I asked to see the chain you forged. Her gaze drifted down to the river where sparrows already picked at bloated corpses bobbing against half-sunken galleys. Remove it, little brother. Ships must bring grain, not war. Tyrion's laugh was a cough. Remove the only thing that truly kept Stannis from swarming these quays? He will not risk a second defeat so soon, and the Tyrells will not feed a city they cannot profit from. Unshackle the river. He made a show of mulling it, then shrugged. As you command, your grace. But remember, you unchain more than water. High above the main yard Loras Tyrell knelt in the sept, visor thrown back, golden hair damp with sweat and river mist. The rainbow guard was gone. Only a single green cloak, now singed black at the hem, lay folded upon the marble beside him. Morning light spilled through shattered mosaics in shards that painted his mail with fragments of sunlight and holy fire. He prayed not for Renly. Renly had grown tired of prayers, had mocked the warrior statues for slack jaws and empty fists, but for action swift and hard. Footsteps whispered across broken tiles. Brienne of Tarth approached, blue cloak trailing like a shadow made of sky. She halted 3 paces behind, hands loose at her sides, expression carved from something beyond grief, perhaps purpose. "You swore to protect him," Loras said without turning. "As did you." His shoulders tightened. "I loved him. I wanted only to serve. Serve better then." He rose, turning. Green eyes, once gentle, blazed with a brightness that frightened her. "Help me find the proof." Renly was struck by no sorcery born of Shadow Knights. The stories Stannis' men spread in their fear, lies, all of it. My king was murdered by a simpler, uglier art. Poison. Brienne met his gaze. "You believe the queen." "I know." The word cracked like breaking ice. Pycelle's ravens flew south for a fortnight before Renly's bowels failed. The lioness gifted him honeyed words, perhaps honeyed wine. Someone in that camp carried death in a phial. Brienne said nothing, but thought of Colin of Greenpools, found with his throat opened ear to ear the night before Bitterbridge dissolved into chaos. Stormlander hands had wrapped his corpse in burlap and tossed it into the Mander to spare his family shame. A knight's honor drowned with him, and perhaps Cersei's secret as well. Loras took a breath, calmer. Renly's dream will not die so easily. The realm should have followed laughter, not terror. If we reveal the lioness's hand, every petty lord clutching his purse strings to King's Landing will recoil. "Proof," Brienne repeated. "I intend to wrest it from the bowels of the Red Keep." Her gauntlet closed over his wrist. That keep chewed Stannis' army to marrow and spat them into flame. "You would march in alone." "I will not be alone." His grip tightened on her fingers. "You owe him. Ride with me, Brienne." Honor warred with caution behind her eyes. At last she nodded once. A vow's steel clasped between them, silent and unbreakable. That same afternoon, Grand Maester Pycelle shuffled along the gallery that circled the throne room, the clack of his chain echoing through vaulted shadows. Sweat matted his white beard. He smelled of camphor and stale cinnamon. Every few steps he peered over the balustrade, where masons erected a raised dais draped in Lannister crimson, the better that common folk might gape upon their young king and his shining rose bride once vows were said. Dowager seamstresses buzzed like anxious bees around Marjorie Tyrell, measuring sleeves, adjusting emerald-studded stays, sewing golden lion heads onto a train of Myrish lace 20 feet long. Pycelle's hands shook. Cersei had ordered him to brew a new cordial for Joffrey's digestion. "The heat unsettles his humors," she claimed, and he had obeyed, though each vial he boiled filled his nostrils with memory of that other draught, the Jade Sea elixir that had stilled a stag mid-leap. He had steeped too long in Cersei's service. Every tincture now reeked of treachery, yet he could refuse as easily as a falcon might refuse the glove. He climbed the spiral to the rookery, hoping the scent of raven droppings might dislodge his dread. Halfway up he met the dwarf descending, torch in bandaged hand. "Grand Maester," Tyrion greeted with a brittle smile. "Off to whisper sweet nothings into black wings?" Pycelle's throat worked. The Queen Regent requested a report on Old Town stores of grain and salt pork. Old Towns? Intriguing. I should have thought Highgarden closer. But no matter. Tyrion's gaze sharpened. "Have a care with those vials, my dear Pycelle. When one passes so many poisons that the stoppers blur together, one's own cup may grow uncertain." Their shoulders brushed. Pycelle nearly stumbled. When he glanced back, Tyrion was gone like a candle snuffed by draught. He reached the rookery and wrote the letter anyway. Beyond the city walls, tents sprang up across the charred fields where wildfire still smoldered beneath a crust of cooled slag. The Tyrells pitched bright silken pavilions, each roof embroidered with green vines, each pole capped with polished brass thorns. Mace Tyrell waddled among them, dispensing fat haunches of roast boar to hungry bravos and more so to bards. "Sing of my daughter's beauty," he commanded, mouth slick with grease. "Sing of our shining alliance. Sing until winter forgets to come." Olenna Redwine ignored him. Seated within a modest awning smelling faintly of mint, she presided over a procession of supplicants. River lords seeking loans, artisans begging for commissions, spymasters offering secrets at steep discount. She waved them away one by one, more interested in the letter that lay upon the small cedar table, Littlefinger's latest epistle. "My lady," it read, "the lioness is fierce, but if you stroke the right ear she purrs. Stroke the wrong she bites. I counsel feathered gloves and hidden knives. Enclosed find a list of red keep scullions recently dismissed. One served at the queen's right hand the night before Renly quit this mortal coil. Another now scrubs privies in flea bottom, wrist heavy with coin none can trace. Shall I fetch her for a quiet talk?" Olenna's fingers drummed. "Fetch her indeed," she murmured, "quiet or otherwise." Inside the castle, Sansa Stark sat by a casement in the maiden vault, mending a tear in a linen shift that was not her own. Sunrise shone through pale flax, painting her hands gold. The Tyrell ladies chattered on the divans behind, voices fluttering like finches around a fountain. They spoke of gowns, of troubadours, of whether it was true that Prince Tommen had begun to favor candied dates over sugared plums. None spoke of fathers imprisoned or brothers marching, and so Sansa said nothing either. A slim shadow fell across the carpet. Marjorie approached, dismissing her companions with a gentle wave. She perched upon the sill opposite, knees nearly brushing Sansa's. "Lady Sansa," she said softly, "does the morning treat you kindly?" "Yes, my lady. The sea breeze is pleasant." Sansa stared at her needle, dare not meet those intent blue eyes. Marjorie tapped the stone. "I remember Winterfell's tallest tower from your stories. You must miss clean air." "I miss many things, and some you will not in time." Marjorie leaned closer. "Will you trust me, Sansa?" Sansa's throat tightened. "Trust is a rare coin here. Then let us mint a new coin together. The queen wants you far from her son. That much is plain. But she also wants the North cowed. Should you leave without a husband, half the realm will gamble on wedding you to claim northern loyalty. If I am queen, perhaps I might guide your path. Find you a match of your choosing, or no match at all if the gods decree. We might be sisters of a sort." Hope flared again, fragile as spring frost. "Why help me?" Marjorie's lashes lowered. "Because I know the pinch of another woman's claws." She glanced toward the distant throne room where Cersei's laughter pealed, glass bright. "And because I lost a king once, I would rather not lose another friend." Sansa nodded, not trusting her voice. Marjorie brushed a thumb across Sansa's stitched seam, approving, then rose. As she drifted away, Sansa realized the Tyrell girl had not asked for vows in return, only patience. Yet in King's Landing every gift masked a price. 2 days later the chain was hauled from the depths, links groaning against block and tackle until they lay coiled upon the quay like some leviathan's iron skeleton. Sailors spat and cheered. Grain cogs from Old Town bobbed upriver by dusk. With them came a sleek galley bearing the kraken of pike upon black sail. Theon Greyjoy strode ashore in his father's name, smelling of salt and unearned pride. Cersei received him in the throne room's shadowed side aisles, flanked by Ser Adam Marbrand and 3 unsmiling Hightower knights loaned by Marjorie for the day. Theon bent knee, eyes flicking to the Iron Throne's daggers. "King Balon sends regards, your grace." He would speak of rivers and rocks, of coastlines ripe for harvest. The North bleeds. Seizing its shoreline would choke Robb Stark's rebellion. Cersei's smile was professional murder. And in return, recognition of Pike's independence and... He hesitated, glancing at Marjorie, resplendent in a sea-green gown beside the queen. "A suitable marriage alliance. My sister Asha is fierce, but Balon desires fresh blood to bind our shield to your lion." Marjorie's lips curved. "Asha Greyjoy beside Joffrey on the morrow? She might gut him before the bedding." Cersei let the jest hang. "Independence is a heavy crown. Should Ironborn raiders trouble our merchants, I would hold Balon answerable. The price of freedom is leash, Lord Theon." Theon smirked. Ironborn prefer chains of another sort. Anchors, weigh them at your peril. Cersei dismissed him without promise. Yet already she calculated, an Ironborn fleet disrupting Stark supply lines might save the crown twice over. And if they proved unruly, Wildfire cared nothing for salt or iron. That night Tyrion shared sour Dornish red with Varys upon the tower balcony. The eunuch poured with impeccable grace. Tyrion swallowed with none. Below, lanterns dotted the campfires, ringing the city like constellations too weary to climb skyward. "My sister secures new friends," Tyrion muttered. "Friends born of poison and desperation, but friends nonetheless." Varys's hands fluttered. "Friends may become jailers when keys change hands. Are we certain Renly's demise was the Queen's doing?" "You doubt it." "I doubt everything, my lord. It keeps me alive." Tyrion leaned back. "If she did, she played the winning card. And yet the debt remains. Poison's taste lingers long after the victim is gone. Loras Tyrell is not a man to forgive. Nor is Brienne of Tarth," Varys agreed. "Two blades driven by love spurned. Sharp, if one knows where to point them." Tyrion traced the rim of his cup. "Perhaps we should point them away from my throat. Or yours." "We might." Varys's smile was gentle. "But first we must discover who already guides their hilts." Outside the mud gate, a cloaked figure slipped between pickets, passing Tyrell sentries with a nod and Stormlander footmen with a muttered oath of loyalty. Brienne moved like a mastiff in a room full of porcelain, counting each step, measuring each shadow. Beside her, Loras, clad this night in half-helm and boiled leather dyed brown, ignored the curious glances of men who would have bowed to his golden hair at dawn. They reached the charred shell of a riverside warehouse pressed into Tyrell quartermaster service. Inside, grain sacks towered for men high. Loras guided Brienne toward a corner where a single cask of arbor wine rested upon a crate. "I tracked the cooper who delivered this," he whispered. "The same mark Renly drank from nightly. It never left the Queen's cellars before Pycelle sent it in her name." Brienne felt the cask's rim, sticky with residue. "Could hold a dozen vials." He produced a small auger, boring a hole. Liquid trickled into a clay cup, dark, aromatic. Loras dipped a fingertip, smelled, winced. "Nightshade's ghost." His jaw tightened. "Enough to topple columns." "Proof," Brienne said. "Almost. We must place Queen and cask together." Footsteps approached. They ducked behind sacks as Ser Haber Redwine and two Stormlander officers entered, arguing over tally sheets. Haber wrapped the cask. "Leave that for Joff's wedding feast. Lions like their drink sweet." The officers laughed, unaware of eyes in the dark. When they left, Loras exhaled. "We move at once. This cask on a cart to the Red Keep. Gift for the wedding. Then, before their first toast, we reveal what swims inside." Brienne's face was stone. "How many must die to prove a death?" "Just one lioness." He seized her wrist again. "Swear you will stand with me." I said I would serve his memory, but slaughter in a hall crowded with small folk and children. Then help me make it cleaner. But help me. His voice broke. Renly deserves justice, not whispers. Brienne, who had donned armor to protect his life and failed, could not bear to fail him in death. She nodded, surrendering to tragedy's undertow. Atop the towering spires of Dragonstone, thunder cracked though the sky was clear. Stannis paced the chamber of the painted table, chart aglow under tallow candles. Melisandre knelt at the doorway, red silk pooled like blood at the threshold. Davos Seaworth joined them, beard newly singed from wildfire blasts he'd survived clinging to flotsam. "My king," Davos said, voice raw. "Salador frees prisoners from the burning hulks. He asks recompense, or he will sail for Lys. Let him." Stannis never ceased pacing. "Traitors flee when defeat stinks. The loyal remain. Loyal men starve," Davos warned. "Dragonstone stores cannot feed those who returned. Nor can they feed my throne if won on kneeling stomachs." Stannis paused, palms flat on Westeros carved in green heartwood. We require Windhewn Point, Massey's Hook. We will raid the Kingswood, seize cattle before the lion's claws close again. Melisandre rose. The night whispers of another path, your grace. The boy king's coronation draws near. Shadows gather behind stained glass. Let me birth one more, and the star that led you from storm's end shall blaze anew. Davos blanched. Another shadow? It was sorcery turned our men's hearts cold on the Blackwater. Tales spread. They fear the Red Woman as much as wildfire. She is wildfire, Stannis said softly. Flame that eats through lies. She eats through honor, Davos insisted. Let steel, not shadows, win your throne. Stannis's eyes glittered, storm on slate. Steel failed me, fire will not. In a flea-bitten tavern off Rainy Gate, Peter Baelish met an old washerwoman with boils on her hands and a startling glimmer in her gaze. She once scoured Cersei's linen when Robert still breathed, and gossip clung to her like lie. He purchased ale, fed coin across the table, and listened. Piss-poor excuse for a queen, she rasped. Slipped her brother's whelp pig's milk in his porridge when he fretted. Keeps serpent's tongue water ready for her enemies. I know the apothecary sells it. I washed her sheets when Renly's crew camped. Blood stains, brown and foul. Stomach bled right out, they say. Littlefinger smiled, twirling a gold coin. How uncanny it must be, serving at history's elbow. She winked. History ne'er washes itself, my lord. He left her humming a bawdy Rainey's song. Outside, only moonlight witnessed him glance at the paper tucked inside his glove. Names of every Blackwater corpse identified by pyromancer Haleen before burning. Colon of Greenpools, the first link in a lengthening chain. Wedding day dawned gilded, humming with trumpet blasts and the drone of bees aloft on warm autumn wind. Fountains burbled wine. Bakers stacked sugar castles. The High Septon rehearsed vows with quaking timbre. The throne room was transformed. New rushes strewn beneath balconies. Each niche draped in rich flowers twined with gilded lion's tail. Some petals wilted in the heat. Attendants replaced them hourly, until the air itself smelled deliriously of roses smothering something darker underneath. Loras's cask arrived at sunrise, iron hoops glimmering, escorted by 4 Tyrell spearmen. Cersei's steward signed the manifest, noting its origin. Highgarden Reserve, for her grace's personal cellar. The cask rolled through the yards, past grooms, cooks, and a solitary knight of Tarth who watched from beneath an arched colonnade, helm concealing her eyes. Brienne surveyed the path. At each turn she counted sentries, measured torch height, weighed the hazards. The risk of catastrophe, should the cask rupture near any flame, churned her gut. Loras had sworn the liquid inside no longer ignited. Nightshade cooked the oil to damping sludge. Yet poison spilled in a crowded hall could kill hundreds. Her vow demanded she prevent such pain. In the White Sword Tower, Ser Jaime Lannister buckled his new hand's plate, polished bright as a mirror. He bent to the Kingsguard book, quill poised. Outside, bells rang for his sons. My nephew's wedding. He had killed a king once to save the realm. Today he would guard one to save his sister's hold. And somewhere in this snake pit, a Tyrell rose might bear hidden thorns. He smiled. Danger always made him feel alive. The Sept of Baelor exploded with color and music come midday. Sunbeams slanted through tall windows, painting Marjorie in cloth of gold so thin it fluttered whenever she breathed. Joffrey, clad head to toe in crimson scale, smirked at each cheer, drunk already on adoration and arbor vintage. The High Septon droned the vows. Tywin Lannister's face remained inscrutable. Mace Tyrell beamed like a fat cherub hoarding cakes in both fists. In the gallery Tyrion stood between Sansa and Varys. He whispered, "Wagers on how long before the bride chokes on his arrogance?" Varys murmured back, "I fear the queen's throat may catch first." At the altar, silk ribbons bound Joffrey and Marjorie's wrists. The Septon intoned final blessing. Heralds proclaimed them king and queen, scattering petals that stuck to sweat-damp brows. Cheers shook dust from rafters. A procession wound toward the feast hall. Cersei led, golden circlet gleaming. Behind came the royal pair, then singers, jugglers, dwarves on stilt horses. Sansa trod dutifully at Tyrion's side, heart hammering. Would this day bring deliverance, or another prison bar? Within, the cavernous hall tables groaned beneath roast herons, orange-glazed hams, capons stuffed with figs. In the center, the new cask perched upon a silver stand, a jeweled hammer waiting for the king's first strike. Loras positioned himself near, hand resting on the haft. Brienne placed herself behind a pillar, scanning. Where was the queen? There, ascending the dais with Joffrey. 2 goblets awaited, tall as a maiden's forearm, carved of crystal, each rim kissed with pearls. Cersei would pour, Joffrey would drink, Marjorie after. Loras's eyes burned holes through the cask, timing each breath. Cersei lifted a golden mallet, symbolic, delicate. She tapped the cask bung. Wine streamed into a silver ewer, dark and velvety. She lifted the ewer high. Servants poured into goblets. The hall hushed. Brienne stepped forward. "My queen!" The shout drowned beneath a trumpet flourish. Jaime glided to Joffrey's side, whispering. Cersei nodded, motioned for musicians. Loras's knuckles whitened. Brienne surged. "My queen, that wine!" Jaime's sword cleared half an inch. "Stand down, woman. I must speak." Marjorie touched Joffrey's wrist, delaying the toast. Her eyes fixed on Brienne, questioning. Littlefinger slipped between them all. "Sir Jaime," he purred. "Our Lady of Tarth bears news of sabotage. Shall we hear her, or bury a rumor that might poison appetite?" Jaime's brow arched. "Speak then, quickly." Brienne drew breath. "That cask came from the Reach caravans, but its true provenance is the Queen's own cellar, poisoned to slay King Renly. Taste it before the realm drinks." Gasps rippled. Cersei's face blanched, then flushed scarlet. "Outrageous." Loras strode forward, hand on dagger. "Let her speak." Cersei's fingers twitched above her cup. Tyrion half smiled. Here lay the crevice in her fortress. He raised a hand. "A simple solution. Grand Maester Pycelle shall sample the wine." Pycelle shuffled near, eyes frantic. My humors." "Drink," Tyrion commanded. With trembling hands, the old man raised the ewer to his lips, sipped. Silence thickened. He swallowed, eyes fluttering. A long heartbeat too, then a wet cough. But he remained standing. "Aged, but harmless," Cersei declared, reclaiming the ewer and refilling Joffrey's cup. "My son shall not be toyed with." Loras's face crumpled. Brienne's shoulders sagged. Tyrion studied the maester. No sweating, no blanch. Either the poison lay deeper or not at all. Perhaps Cersei had anticipated suspicion and replaced the contents. Or perhaps Renly's killer had never been wine but something subtler. The moment passed. Musicians resumed. Joffrey drank deeply, smacked lips, declared it good, if oversweet like all Reach vintages. Laughter chased tension from corners, yet some eyes watched Brienne retreat, watched Loras vanish into the crowd with storm-cloud gaze. Night deepened, torches guttered low. In a moonlit courtyard, Brienne found Loras smashing a practice dummy to splinters, tears streaking cheeks. "Why failed?" he gasped. "The Queen anticipated us, or the poison never rode the cask. I saw her ravens, saw the letters, perhaps another hand." Brienne touched the broken stave. "Renly deserved justice, but we must cut deeper, slower. The realm watched us fail. Next time they must not see." Loras's breath hitched. "Next time," he echoed, handing her the splintered wood like a sword's hilt. In the Tower of the Hand, Tyrion penned a letter to Dorne. "Your ships are idle, your spears thirst." He sealed it with wax shaped like a lion claw clutching a sun. Alliances were like wildfire, handle wrongly and one burned. Handle cleverly and blast away every rival. He set down the seal and poured a fresh cup of the Reach wine. He sniffed, detecting mint, cloves. Harmless, yet he hesitated before drinking. Across his desk lay Pycelle's remedy for Joffrey, opaque syrup smelling of moon tea. He uncorked it, dabbed a finger, tasted. Bitter but no more. Still, he found no peace. Poison no longer belonged to Cersei alone. Suspicion itself was poison. And in King's Landing, paranoia spread faster than plague. Weeks slipped by. Trade resumed. Gold flowed. The Tyrell-Lannister alliance glittered like new coin, heavy, reassuring. But beneath, cracks widened. Gold cloaks brawled with Tyrell outriders. Ironborn longships pillaged the sisters. Brienne and Loras scoured the city's underbelly for witnesses. Littlefinger whispered into Olenna's ear of Sansa's claim to the north. Varys carried tales of sand snakes riding for Old Town. Each rumor another thread tugged. One foggy dawn, Brienne cornered a scullion in the Blackwater Rush Market, thin, hollow-cheeked, who once waited Renly's final meal. She pulled him into an alcove, offered coin for truth. "A knight brought the king's stew," he stammered. Tasted it first, said it was rich. Night of his pain. Knight wore a green pool badge. The name echoed like a bell. Brienne released the boy, cold certainty flooding her. Had served the queen once, and died just after Renly. She fetched Loras, heartsick. "Cersei's string," Loras whispered. "But proof. His body. We must find it." They bribed a fisherman to trawl the bend beneath the city's tanneries. On the third day, a burlap-wrapped corpse surfaced, throat a grin of bone. Brienne pried open the jaw. Inside, tongue black as pitch, nightshade, proof enough. They carried the body to Olenna's tent. The Queen of Thorns pinched the decayed lips, unimpressed. A dead knight proves little, but perhaps his diary, if one existed. "Did you search his saddlebags before looters?" "No," Brienne admitted. "Then ride to his widow at Greenpools. Diaries hide under pillows more often than corpses." She dismissed them with wave of her cane. Yet her eyes glittered, weapon finally at hand. That night Cersei hosted a mask of moon and harvest, reviving pageantry Robert once adored. Dancers painted as stars twirled with maidens stitched into clouds. She wore a gown of molten gold, shoulders bare, hair braided with rubies. Joffrey lounged on a divan, crossbow across knees, shooting wax apples from servants' mouths amid shrieks of forced delight. Marjorie feigned laughter, placing herself between his line of sight and every trembling girl. Tyrion approached the queen. "Splendid, truly, but rumor says a corpse floats with your name etched on its tongue." Her smile cracked. "Rumor also says your Sellswords plot to sell you to Bravos. I pay better, as do you, I suspect." He lowered his voice. "Brienne and the Knight of Flowers dig deep. How long before they unearth a truth neither of us once paraded? Then bury them," she hissed. "They are beloved by the Reach. Kill them, lose bread. Bread feeds more than armies. It feeds riots." Her nails bit his sleeve. "Find another means." Tyrion thought of Sansa, of timid hopes, of Varys's whispered alternative paths. "There is always marriage," he murmured. Cersei frowned, tipping her head, but he moved away before she could parse. In the dungeons, Qyburn bled a rat into porcelain, chanting notes for a treatise on venom. He combined crushed manticore stingers with sour leaf sap, marking how muscle twitched. When a hooded figure descended the stairs, he did not look up. "Maester," Littlefinger greeted lightly, "I bring a commission, a potion to mimic winter fever. Swift, gentle, leaving no trace. Which victim? A boy, maybe, or a rose? One must prepare for options." Qyburn set Quill aside. "I require a drop of their blood. The brew resonates best with what it knows." Littlefinger produced a silk kerchief, damp with a single dried brown spot. "From a prick of the thumb. Should suffice." Qyburn smiled. "Indeed, return in 3 days." As Baelish ascended, torchlight revealed the kerchief's embroidered thorn, sigil of House Tyrell. Beyond city gates, Brienne and Loras rode west toward Greenpools, cloaks snapping. Rain swept low across wheat stubble. Crows lifted. Thunder whispered. At their backs, on Lord Harroway's town quay, A sleek ship unfurled sails emblazoned with golden antlers. Emissaries of Storm's End sailing to Bravos to hire the Titan's daughter's sail company. War's horizon widened again. They reached green pools near dusk, a modest hall perched above reed-choked ponds. Lady Annette Colin received them, grief weather-cracked but proud. Her husband's armor stood painting mildew on a cedar stand. His journals, she confessed, lay in a chest unopened since the bad news. They opened it. Pages smelled of mold and rosewater. Brienne's lantern light slid across ink. Orders from Renly, debts owed, and near the end, a letter sealed with lion rampant. In trembling script Colin recorded, Her Grace promises gold and pardon. Deliver the vial upon the feast table. Mark Renly's cup alone. His death ensures realm's peace. In the name of the crown, she says. Loras closed the book, hands shaking. Proof. Yet beyond the window torches flashed. Riders approached. Bolsworth men sworn to the queen. Someone had tracked them. Ride, Brienne urged, shoving the journal into a satchel. They burst from the hall as arrows whistled. Horses thundered down the wet lane, mud spattering. Behind, flames licked Greenpool's thatch. Lady Annette screamed as troops set her house ablaze. Regret tore Brienne's chest, but she pressed heels. Justice, not martyrdom, must guide them. Arrows chased them across marshy flats until night swallowed all. In King's Landing, the small council convened at dawn. Tywin sat head, stern. Cersei to his right, uncharacteristically silent. Tyrion opposite, nursing wine. Lord Varys announced, a fire consumed Greenpool's manor. Lady Annette safe but destitute. Bandits, they say. Cersei's fingers drummed. Tyrion's brow arched. Tywin grunted. Bandit incursions near Crownland's unsettled trade. Ser Gregor will ride. Cersei opened her mouth, then closed it. Tyrion watched. Had she burned the hall, or had some other hand moved to protect her? Later, he found Varys. Who truly lit that fire? Varys sighed. When so many play with sparks, my lord, the wind itself is suspect. Tyrion grimaced. And the Tyrells? Waiting, watching. The eunuch's smile faded. They believe themselves gardeners, pruning dead wood. Yet roots run deep. Outside Bitterbridge again, Olenna examined Colin's journal, passed covertly by Brienne in a supply wagon. Her mouth pursed. Handwriting true? Yes, grandmother, Marjorie confirmed. Our scribes compared old ledgers. Olenna's eyes sharpened. Then the Queen Regent's gilded cage has bars forged of murder. Time to rattle them. That evening, Littlefinger arrived with Qyburn's vial. Olenna received him beneath lanterns among hedges. For winter fever, you said, she noted, swirling the opalescent fluid. A mercy, should you need one. She slipped the vial into her sleeve. Mercy is for children. I pay for leverage. She tossed him Colin's journal. Deliver to the hand. Tell him the rose invites the lion to reflect on thorns. Littlefinger weighed it, lips curling. One might choke on reflection. Better than poison, she replied. He bowed and melted into darkness. Tyrion read the journal by candlelight. Rain battered shutters. He finished, exhaled, drained a cup. Shay, half-dressed, watched. Bad news. The worst. Proof. He tapped the page. If this surfaces, rivers of bread dry up. Stannis rears again. The north grows bold. You will burn it? He hesitated. I must balance realm against justice. Burn and Renly's murder stands. Expose and realm fractures. Shay approached, laid a hand on his shoulder. You love the realm more than yourself? I love breathing. He closed the journal. And I suspect my sister loves it too. He rose to visit Cersei, journal hidden. Outside his door, a Kingsguard stood, Ser Balon Swan. Her Grace summons you, he said. Tyrion nodded, two ends of one thread drawing together. Cersei waited in her solar, Qyburn at her elbow. The moon cast silver bars across the rug. She held a scroll. I know what you carry, she said. He raised brows. And I know what you burn. She threw the scroll on the table. It bore the same handwriting as the journal, a copy, perhaps. "Our father will gut us if this sees light." "Then bury it," Tyrion answered. "Not enough." Loras plots. Brienne hunts. The Reach twists the tale to shackle us. "We must clip the rose." Tyrion's stomach clenched. "You would kill Marjorie? Risk bread for vengeance. Remove the petals, and thorns break." She looked to Qyburn, who produced the winter fever vial. A cough, a chill, a queen in silken shroud. Tyrells scatter.
Tyrion Sdalovet bile.
And Joffrey? He will flay Sansa, burn Fleabottom, blame who he pleases. The realm will revolt. You have a better path? Her eyes challenged. He produced the journal, laid it beside the vial. Confess privately to Marjorie. Beg her silence. Offer Sansa's freedom, Highgarden's trading privileges, the Vale's grain rights. Buy her secrecy. Cersei laughed. Beg. Bargain, then. He met her gaze. Poison breeds poison. We end it here, or drown in it. She looked away, for once uncertain. 3 days later, in a garden of quince and pomegranate, Marjorie walked with Cersei beneath fluttering doves. No guards, only one maiden each. Cersei carried a small carved box. Marjorie clasped a red rose. They paused at a stone bench. Cersei opened the box, revealing Colin's journal. Wind rustled leaves. She spoke, voice low, recounting loyalty, necessity, despair. She offered apologies, thin but real. She offered trade concessions. She swore protection. At the end, she set the box down and stepped back. Marjorie listened, unmoving. When silence fell, she laid her rose inside the box atop the journal and closed the lid. You speak of necessity, she said. Then hear mine. I will keep this secret. For the realm, for the people who must eat. But I will never trust you. From this day forth, our fates are entwined only by the boy on the throne. Should his cruelty slay one innocent more, I will open this box to every lord in Westeros. Cersei inclined her head, face pale. Then we are queens both, one reigning, one watching the reins. Pray we pull the same direction. Marjorie turned, gown whispering. Her maiden lifted the box. They left without bow. Cersei remained, hands clenched, nails drawing blood from her palms. Autumn bled toward winter. Stannis harried the narrow sea, carving merchant whales into splinters. Robb Stark's host one river run only to bog in mud before the twins closed gates. Balon Greyjoy crowned himself and burned Deepwood Motte. Yet King's Landing, improbably, held together under a brittle treaty sealed in secrets. Brienne and Loras returned, unease coiled between them. Loras trained with silent fury. Brienne wrote nightly letters unsent. Both awaited the day Renly's ghost might finally rest. Tyrion drafted reforms. Bread allotments, sewer repairs, taxes eased for small folk. Joffrey ignored them, hunting cats with crossbow bolts in the Red Keep's warrens. Cersei watched from high windows. Every dawn she sipped arbor gold laced with valerian to steady her pulse, tasting for bitterness she half expected. She dreamed of jade-green drops twinkling in moonlight, of lions struggling in quicksand of roses, of dwarfs whispering truths louder than any shout. One night she woke to bells. A raven had come. Ashford sacked. Stannis marches again with cell sails from the stepstones. She rose, ordered armor polished, wildfire stores replenished. But in her heart she knew, wildfire might burn ships, poison stall kings, but secrets, once plucked, bloom in darkness. And somewhere a wooden box lay beneath a Tyrell maiden's bed, holding a dried rose atop a testament of murder, petals curling as winter crept, waiting for the slightest breath to scatter them across a realm always hungry for more blood. Cersei, dressed in crimson silk, stared at her reflection and wondered which poison would claim her first, the one she brewed or the one she had become. The moon slipped behind tatters of cloud, and the night breathed a wet chill across the rooftops of King's Landing. Chimneys exhaled smoke that mingled with sea salt haze, gilded ever so faintly by torches guttering along the palace walls. Cersei stood in her bedchamber, palms flat against the cool glass of an arrow slit, staring down at the gardens where dusk moths fluttered among purple bellflowers. Somewhere beyond the ramparts a kitten yowled. The sound carried through the stillness like a child's lost cry and vanished. She listened, wondering if even stray beasts sensed the hush that followed secrets too heavy to bear. A wooden box lay locked in Marjorie's apartments tonight, and inside it words waited like sword points poised over her throat. She touched her own reflection in the lattice panes, a shadow of gold hair and pinched lips. Robert's ghost had long since stopped haunting her dreams, but now Renly visited instead, belly distended, eyes glassy, flies crawling over a tongue blackened by poison. He never spoke. He only watched, and his silence was a question her waking mind could not answer. She closed her eyes and pressed harder against the glass until her nails squealed. If peace must be purchased with fear, so be it. Fear, wielded well, was only another kind of coin, and Cersei Lannister had always known how to pay. In a lesser turret Tyrion paced, lamp swinging from one hand, casting giants up the stone. Shay dozed on the bed, half covered by a lion-red blanket, but he could not rest beside her. The journal's copy had gone, surrendered to Cersei, but the original lay hidden beneath a loose flagstone, wrapped in vellum and sealed with wax melted from his own signet. Some part of him, a wiser part perhaps, distrusted any single bargain struck in the dark. He would keep one final lever in this spinning machine of alliances lest it grind him to dust. A soft knock. Podrick slipped inside, eyes wide, trembling fingers clutching a parchment swirl. A raven from the Eyrie, M-Lord. Lord Peter says the Vale's grain barges pass Maidenpool within the fortnight, provided safe docking fees are honored. He adds that the Lady Lisa's heart is freshly softened by your dwarfish charms. Tyrion snorted. If Lady Lisa's heart is ever soft, it is only because the rest of her has curdled. He took the letter, dismissed Podrick, and slit the seal. Numbers, promises, flattery. Littlefinger's usual treacle, though one line snagged his eye. Some flowers bloom twice when you prune the first buds. He frowned. Peter rarely wasted metaphor unless it served a deeper purpose. Flowers? Buds? A not-so-veiled reference to Marjorie? Tyrion rubbed his brow. Every courier seemed to carry hidden layers now, and he was running out of lantern oil with which to read them. Across the courtyard Marjorie knelt before a low table, fingers whispering along the edge of Renly's antlered crown, the one she had kept hidden beneath silk since Bitterbridge. A serving girl had polished it earlier until the gold gleamed, erasing soot from the wildfire night, but no cloth could scrub away the memory of Renly's laughter echoing inside its hollow ring. She set the crown down carefully, turned, and unlatched her traveling chest. Scrolls rustled within. Supply rosters from the Reach, victim lists from the Blackwater, diagrams of city cisterns Lord Varys had offered in exchange for a promise never to be repeated. The box containing Colin's journal rested atop them all, light as wood, heavy as doom. She touched the lid, exhaled, and slid it deeper. Garland entered, closing the door behind him. "The Queen Regent visits the granary at dawn," he murmured. House Redwine's captains sail upriver to inspect stores. 200 barrels of grain already spoiled. "Let them spoil," Marjorie replied. "Every barrel that rots gives me leverage." Garland studied her, candlelight softening the planes of his honest face. "How long can you bear that leverage before it crushes us all? Until the city is ours in truth, not merely in debt notes." She smiled, gentle for him. "Trust me, brother. I know which petals to pluck." Beneath their window, Brienne stood in the torch shadow of a gallery arch, polishing Oathkeeper's edge. The sword had once belonged to Renly's standard-bearer, a man slain beside his king. The ruined blade had been reforged by Castle Derry's smiths to gift her purpose. Each stroke of the whetstone hissed like the tide receding over gravel. Her vow to protect Marjorie was iron-bound now, hammered by guilt, tempered by grief. But as steel met steel, she found herself wondering whether oaths could beget new sins as easily as they could atone for old ones. Loras stalked the practice yard with a spear, scoring endless circles in the dirt. He thrust, parried invisible foes, pivoted on the balls of his feet until sweat blinded him. Ser Preston halted nearby to watch. More guards gathered, hushed in awe. Loras ignored them, hearing only the rasp of his breath and the roar of lambs being led to slaughter. At last he stopped, planted the spear but in mud, and leaned forward, both palms atop the shaft. "I thought fury would burn itself out," he rasped, voice raw. "But it grows hotter each night." Preston shifted his weight. "The queen and your lady have an accord. Accords are riddles." Loras jabbed the spear downward, splitting earth. "Riddles beg answers. I will find mine." Midway between castle and docks, the street of looms hummed as dawn torches gave way to lanterns. Cloth merchants unrolled bolts dyed seawater teal for Marjorie's new gowns. Dyers pressed coin into the pockets of city watchmen to keep footpads at bay. Hidden among them moved a man in rough spun, heavy with salt. Salador San had come ashore at last, claiming it was safer to trade silk by daylight than to raid galleys by moon. He inspected thread and color, paid with lysine silver, then slipped behind a stall where a small cloaked figure awaited. Davos Seaworth lowered his hood, gaze flitting. "My king still stands true to the Red God's counsel, yet sell sales waver. You speak of compensation. Half the spoils of King's Landing were promised." Salador chuckled. "Spoils sink when wildfire cooks them. I prefer coin before conflagration." He thumbed a turquoise bead. "Tell Stannis gold flows deepest where roses root." Davos grimaced. "Stand with the Lord of Light or stand aside." The pirate patted his arm. "I stand where tide carries profit. Bring me a better wind." Davos watched him vanish into nodding alleyways and felt the city's heartbeat pounding beneath his boots. Stannis would march again soon, but without coin the march would falter. Perhaps the time had come to seek allies whose gods burned with different fires. Far to the north, Robb Stark paced before a smoky brazier in the guesthouse of Oldstones. Rain hammered slate roofing. Gray wind skulked in the shadows, hackles twitching. Catelyn's latest raven lay unfurled, its words smudged by tears that still dampened her cheeks. Renly dead by poison, court alliances shifting, Tyrell bride now queen. Robb clenched the parchment. "Poison," he muttered. "Like serpents in Southron cups, they needed alliances of their own. Houses bound by oaths deeper than fear." Yet the phrase demanded Edmure's hand for a crossing. The Karstark seethed, and winter pressed close. In Dragonstone's cavernous scepter Lawler, Melisandre stood barefoot upon black basalt, head tipped toward the painted ceiling. Flames leapt from iron braziers, reaching like fingers toward her outstretched arms. She saw shapes in the tongues of fire, crowned lions devouring golden roses, a wolf with two heads pacing beneath a bleeding star, a kraken strangled by weirwood roots. Smoke curled into serpents and burst against the rafters. When she lowered her hands, her eyes glowed like coals. Stannis, waiting just beyond the threshold, swallowed. He had witnessed visions before, but today her voice struck the stone like a smith's hammer. "The fire shows 7 betrayals," she intoned. "One lies already in a locked box, another rides a ship disguised as grain, the third holds a blade carved from grief. 3 more coil in shadows yet to deepen, and the 7th betrayal will come wrapped in mourning cloth." Stannis frowned. "Speak plainly." The lioness carries poison in her heartbeat, the rose in her breath, the wolf in its wounds. Only the chosen king may withstand such venom. Stannis nodded, though he understood little. "Then let my heart burn hotter." She stepped closer. "Fire cleanses, but ashes must fall. The mother of dragons stirs in far east. Her wings will shadow your triumph if you do not act." He thought of dragons long dead, of stories told by wet nurse whispers. Dragons are ash, yet from ash rise embers. Her smile glimmered red. "Send me to Qarth, my king. Let me see what threatens dawn." He hesitated. To parcel his only sorceress across seas while the crown still glittered on a boy king's brow seemed folly. But if dragons flew again, wildfire rings would be child's play in comparison. He placed a hand on her robe sleeve. "Take Davos. Find truth. returned swift. The next tide bore sea scarab eastward, purple pennant snapping. Davos leaned on the rail as Dragonstone's towers shrank into mist, remembering the smell of wildfire and the stench of men cooked alive. He preferred honest salt and honest risk. Maybe Karth held both. Back in the capital, Littlefinger wandered the Hall of Lamps with Varys, trading stories and towels after a perfumed bath. Littlefinger because he enjoyed the echoes, Varys because it amused him to appear vulnerable where sharp ears nested. Hay discussed shipping tariffs, Dornish border skirmishes, then drifted, as if by chance, to marriage markets. The Queen Regent's hold appears sturdy now, Peter mused, drying his hair. Tyrell Grain, Lannister sword, ironborn raiders biting Stark shores. Yet sturdy vines strangle when left unchecked. Varys nodded, folding his hands over his girth. Vines offer grapes, grapes provide wine, wine, contentment. Would you prune the vine? Pruning fosters sweeter fruit, Peter said. Remove the lioness and the city drinks only rosewater. Too cloying. Small folk revolt for want of spice. Remove the rose entirely and the lion starves. Balance rests on one delicate bud. And which bud holds your purse? Littlefinger laughed. The one yet unopened. The eunuch's smile did not reach his eyes. He watched Peter depart and whispered to nobody. Some buds, when they bloom, smell of tomb earth. Sansa returned from the September of Baelor at dusk. Hands chafed from polishing prayer benches. Septa Moel walked beside her and spoke of mercy, but Sansa scarcely heard. Her gaze lingered on merchants haggling over onions, on children kicking a stuffed bladder in the dust, on the broken hilt of a dagger glinting beneath a stall. Many things could be weapons, she thought. Words, looks, tears. She knew them all. She remembered Marjorie's promise and clung to hope like ivy to old stone. Perhaps one day she would walk free of walls. That same evening, Jaime found Tyrion atop the tower of the Hand's windy parapet. He carried 2 cups. I'm told moonlight pairs best with arbor vintage. He offered a cup. Tyrion accepted, sniffed, a habit now unbreakable, and drank. Jaime leaned on the crenellation. Our sister grows thinner each dawn. Fear is a slimming regimen, and yet she gorges on power like a boar at truffles. Jaime sighed. When the next battle comes, she will order the wildfire again. She does not trust steel. Tyrion looked out over the rooftops. Steel cannot hold whispers at bay. Wildfire can. He set the cup down. If the rose reveals our family's darkest root, even wildfire may fail. Jaime considered. What would you have me do? Kill the Queen of Thorns? Kill? No. Court her. Jaime laughed. I am not Renly, nor Renly's orientation, but Olenna admires irony. She might accept a dance with the Kingslayer if it sharpened her shears. Tyrion shrugged. Or perhaps simply watch our sister's leash shorten until she cannot breathe. Jaime's smile faded. I will not watch her strangle. Tyrion nodded. Then loosen the leash gently before the roses yank it tight. Elsewhere in the palace, Qyburn dismantled a raven on an oak table, wings spread, chest cavity open. He dropped a crushed purple root into the bird's throat, stitched the skin closed, and waited. The raven twitched, hopped upright, cawed as though nothing were amiss, then collapsed seconds later. Death swift, silent, odorless. He dipped a quill. Compound 9 successful, he wrote. Spore dust inert until inhaled. He turned when footsteps approached. Littlefinger loomed, eyes bright. I require more of the winter brew, Peter said. 1 vial remains. Qyburn wiped his blade. But I perfect another marvel. Seeds, carried on air. Too fickle. I prefer certainties. Peter collected the vial. Deliver more soon. He left with cloak swirling, and Qyburn smiled after him. A man who loved his work far too much to care who paid for it. On the second moonless night after the wedding, a skiff painted drab gray slipped silently from the Blackwater's sludge, steering close beneath the walls. 2 cloaked riders guided it inland along the river's narrow cut, past weeping willows and rotting piers. In the stern, Brienne hunched, one hand on her sword, the other clutching a leather satchel. Loras rowed, back straining. Their goal gleamed ahead, the crumbling gatehouse of an abandoned smuggler's tunnel rumored to lead beneath the Red Keep. Loras moored them against slippery stone. They climbed, found the rusted iron gate half-sheathed in moss. A bolt held. Brienne broke it with the pommel of her dagger. Stale air billowed, smells of mold, bat dung, and something older. They entered, torches guttering. Passageways branched. They followed the slope upward until brick replaced rough rock. 500 paces later, torchlight revealed a small wooden door bound in copper. Brienne pressed an ear. She heard only silence. She pushed. Hinges groaned. They stepped into a cellar lined with dusty amphory. Spiderwebs draped barrels. Brienne lifted her torch. Queen's hidden wine, perhaps. Loras brushed webs from a cask, exposing a sigil. A crowned lion rampant, scorched by time. His breath caught. This is the store Pycelle used. They pried a stopper and sniffed vinegar rot. But deeper inside the storeroom lay shelves of glass vials, half-coated in dust. Brienne selected one, held it to light. Inside swirled translucent amber speckled by dark grains. Loras uncorked it. A bitter almond scent wafted. Nightshade. Gods. Brienne scanned shelves. 24 vials, some intact, others shattered. Enough poison to kill thousands. This is treason stored in glass, she whispered. Loras found a ledger tucked between barrels. He opened the stiff pages. Each entry chronicled distribution. 2 vials to Ser Colin, 1 to Maester Franken. He traced names, finger trembling, until he reached Renly's date. Then he flipped further, discovering recent entries. Pycelle had supplied 4 vials to Qyburn only last fortnight. Brienne closed the ledger. If they still brew, we take it, Loras said, voice ablade. Expose it all. Footsteps. They extinguished torches, crouched. A distant clink of iron, the scrape of a lock. The cellar door eased open. Lantern glow swayed. Brienne's hand closed on her dagger. Qyburn entered, humming, holding a polished decanter. Behind him, a Lannister guard waited. Qyburn selected 2 fresh vials from the shelf. He noticed the missing one, frowned, glanced around. Brienne held her breath. Qyburn whispered to the guard, "Wait outside." The man nodded and closed the door. Alone, Qyburn lifted the decanter, measured drops into it, recorked the vials, returned them to their places. He turned, met Brienne's eyes inches away. She clamped a gauntlet hand over his mouth, drew her dagger. Loras slammed the door bolt, disarmed the alchemist. "Lie and die," Loras hissed. "Tell us truth and perhaps breathe another dawn." Qyburn's pupils dilated. Brienne removed her hand. "Speak." He licked dry lips. "I brew what is asked. I do not choose the cup. Who asks now?"
Ser Dantley Hedvini Couriered Coin.
"Vial for soft winter fever." "Winter fever kills children within hours," Brienne growled. "Only weakened ones." Loras backhanded him. Blood spattered. "Whose child?" Qyburn sagged. "A Tyrell. A babe born of—" The door shook. "Qyburn?" called the guard. Brienne dragged Qyburn behind barrels as Loras flattened against the wall. The guard entered, lantern raised. "Maester!" He saw nothing. As he stepped deeper, Brienne struck, pommel to temple. He collapsed soundlessly. Loras bound him. They turned to Qyburn. His head lolled, but he smirked through blood. "Save your realm," he croaked. "But no, mercy is a cup none can share." Brienne knocked him senseless and gagged him. They gathered the ledger, 3 vials, and fled down the tunnel. Above, Cersei paced the solar, uneasy. Qyburn was late. A cold needle prickled her spine as she stared at an inkwell. Tyrion's words returned. "Poison breeds poison." She summoned a page. "Find Maester Qyburn. Bid him report." The page bowed and hurried away. She poured wine, hesitated, and set it aside untouched. Outside the city, A dry wind rustled the tent flaps of the Tyrell host. Olenna sat by a brazier, shelling almonds into a silver dish. She saw her dear grandsire's sigil on a messenger's cloak long before he reached her. He knelt, whispering. Her fingers paused. Almonds slipped through slender old fingers to scatter in the dust. She dismissed the messenger, rose with surprising speed, and commanded her guards to ride for the capital at once. By first light, Brienne and Loras emerged from the tunnel mouth onto a deserted wharf. They hauled Qyburn onto the skiff, but the alchemist stirred midway. He twisted free, smashing a vial. A glass shard sliced Brienne's forearm. She hissed, tossed him down. Vile liquid smoked on planks, releasing acrid vapor. Loras kicked the fragment into the river. They bound Qyburn's wrists with anchor rope. Brienne tied a strip of cloth about her cut, wincing as stinging seeped. They rode beneath gloom. Dawn light painted the horizon bruised lavender. At a secluded cove on the reach side of the river, they dragged Qyburn ashore, hidden by reeds. A Tyrell patrol awaited. Men Loras trusted with his life. He handed the ledger to their captain. "Ride to Bitterbridge. Give this to Lady Olenna." "And the prisoner?" Brienne stared down at Qyburn's slack form. "He answers to Queen Marjorie first." The patrol galloped off, ledger secure. Brienne slumped onto a drift log, heart racing. Loras sat beside her, breath fogging. "We have it," he murmured. "The root, the branch, the poison fruit. We have nothing if they kill us before we deliver." Brienne looked at her wound. Swelling already crawled. The cut, nightshade touched it. Loras examined the gash. Dark grain lodged. "You need a healer." She shook her head. "No time. We ride double." He helped her up, released Qyburn from ropes only to chain his neck with iron. They saddled borrowed mounts from a fisherman's shed. Brienne swayed but mounted, jaw clenched. They thundered through willow groves toward the Rose Road. Every hoofbeat jolted her arm with liquid fire. Spots danced before her eyes. Loras cast glances back. Once at Qyburn, gagged and bound across a spare horse, and once at Brienne, pale as milk. By midday they reached a Tyrell way station. Grooms rushed forward. A maester hurried to inspect Brienne's arm, Sking. He prepared a poultice of broadleaf and honey, bound it tight. "The poison is low dose," he said. "Might stiffen muscle but won't claim the heart if you rest." Brienne flexed fingers. Pain stabbed but eased. She nodded thanks. Olenna arrived by carriage at dusk, hair bristling beneath violet netting. She stepped down, eyes on Qyburn. "A creeping vine I should have pruned long ago." They retreated into the tent's maplit interior. Olenna read the ledger line by line, face growing harder. She snapped it shut. "The Queen Regent's sins now wear a skin. We peel it." Loras slammed fist into palm. "We show the realm tonight." Olenna shook her head.
No.
"Afternoon wedding tourney tomorrow draws half the court beyond palace walls. We confront her then, when eyes cannot deny and tongues cannot twist." Brienne frowned. "She holds icons. Joffrey, crown, Undull's blessing. That boy's favor wanes. Give small folk a better tale, of a lioness humbled, of a rose blooming bright with justice. They will sing whichever song we pay them to learn." Brienne touched bandaged arm. "And if she panics? Wildfire, blades." Olenna smiled thinly. "A cornered lioness must see a single path to survival. We will offer it, lined with surrender." That night Loras stood guard over Qyburn while Brienne attempted sleep. But memory screamed behind her eyelids. Renly's gurgling breaths, the rasp of death unveiled. She sat up, breathing shallow. Somewhere beyond canvas a nightjar called. She answered with silence and vow renewed. At dawn, the Tyrell entourage rode for the gates, wagons loaded with grain to placate citadel guards. Olenna traveled in open litter, letting city folk see her stern smile.
Qyburn rode chained, cloaked.
Brienne, perched behind him, clutched reins with one hand and sword hilt with the other. Loras led, helm bright in the rising sun. Word reached Marjorie at mid-morning. Her grandmother returned unexpectedly. She excused herself from embroidery with Sansa and hurried to the Queen Regent, who sat in the shade of an orange tree sipping watered wine. Cersei's brows arched at the news. She set the goblet down. No prior notice? Curious. Olenna's litter halted in the outer courtyard. Cersei descended the steps with retainers. "My lady, we did not expect you until the morrow's feast." Olenna tapped her cane. Unexpected storms reveal leaks. She turned to Loras, who presented the ledger. Cersei's eyes flicked to the book, then to the shackled form behind. Brienne hauled Qyburn forward, ripped hood free. Gasps rippled. Tywin arrived, face unreadable. Jaime hovered behind him. Tyrion limped in, curiosity vivid. Varys glided like a silk ghost. Olenna spoke, voice clear. "This alchemist confesses to brewing poisons at the Queen Regent's behest. Nightshade distillations, sufficient to fell a stag, a rose, perhaps even a lion." She handed the ledger to Tywin. His own ledger corroborates. Names, weights, dates. Tywin scanned entries, nostrils flaring. Cersei stepped forward. "For my children's safety, I ordered reserves. No more treason than a sword upon the wall." The sword was used, Loras spat. "Renly lies cold because of it." Cersei's hand trembled. "He was a traitor. War spares none." She glanced at Tywin. "Father!" Tywin raised his hand. "Enough!" He signaled guards. They seized Qyburn. "We will examine these claims behind closed doors." Olenna's voice sharpened. "Behind doors rumors breed. I require justice before the realm that still bleeds from wildfire wounds." Tywin weighed her. "If justice turns bread to ash, the realm starves." "Bread can be replanted," she replied. "Trust cannot." Tyrion cleared his throat. "Might I suggest a middling path?" Eyes turned. He produced the original journal, still sealed. "A full trial in the throne room this dusk. Present evidence allow rebuttal. Let the city watch, let the gods judge." Cersei's pulse pounded at her temples. A trial risked everything, but refusal would brand guilt. She looked at Marjorie, who watched her with lips pressed white. Cersei lifted chin. "As Queen Regent, I welcome truth's light." So trumpets announced a session the same evening. Courtiers flocked, rumor bursting. Fishmongers bet fish heads against copper that a Lannister would hang. Tanners swore pigs would fly first.
Surveillance Tickend, crossbowmen lined rafter.
The throne room filled. Tyrell green on one side, Lannister crimson on the other, black cells in the midst. Joffrey sat high, crown tilted, bored. Marjorie beside him, hands folded. Cersei at his left, face marble. Tywin upon the hand's seat, Jaime and Tyrion flanking. Brienne and Loras stood near the prisoner's block. Qyburn knelt, wrists shackled, eyes darting. Grand Maester Pycelle shuffled forth as witness. Tywin's voice boomed. He read charges. Production and distribution of lethal poisons without small council sanction. Conspiracy to commit regicide. Murmurs swelled. Qyburn admitted brewing extracts but claimed it for herbal remedies. Ledger entries disputed him. Pycelle vouched for certain requests, though his memory proved suspiciously hazy. Then Loras stepped forward, voice trembling with contained fury, describing Renly's final hours, the tainted cask, Colin's involvement. Brienne recounted their discovery of the hidden cellar and ledger. She displayed the shard that cut her arm, showed bandaged wound purpling at edges. Tyrion examined it, sniffed. Trace bitterness remained. He announced chemical tests by alchemists confirmed nightshade. Cersei rose. "Hidden cellars predate my reign. Ledger may be forged. Qyburn acted alone." Olenna produced another piece. Qyburn's seal on a purchase order for peppercorns sent to Dragonstone by way of storms end the month before Renly's death. Peppercorns often used to mask bitter tinctures. Faces turned to Pycelle, who blinked, trembling. Tywin's glare pinned him. Sighing, Pycelle admitted sending vials to Renly's camp at Cersei's instruction. She believed the king's brother plotted unnatural treason, he quavered. She would deprive him of unnatural appetites. Groans and shouts filled the hall. Joffrey banged the sword Blackfire on the arm of the throne. "Silence!" he screeched. Tywin stood, motioned guards. "Grand Maester, you are confined pending further inquiry." Pycelle's chain rattled as he was led away. Cersei's calm cracked. "Father, enough!" Tywin's voice echoed like iron gates slamming. "We deliberate." He conferred quietly with Tyrion and Marjorie. Jaime leaned in. Joffrey picked at a hangnail, scowling. Brienne watched Cersei's shoulders shake, though tears did not fall. At length Tywin faced the hall. "Qyburn is guilty of unlicensed alchemy and conspiracy. He is stripped of rank, condemned to death by the sword at dawn." Gasped. Guards seized Qyburn. He smiled mirthlessly as they dragged him off. Tywin turned to Cersei. "The Queen Regent, by allowing unsanctioned poisons within the Red Keep, has endangered his grace and the realm. She shall relinquish supervision of the city's stores to a council comprised equally of Crown and Reach representatives. Furthermore, she will pay restitution from Lannister coffers to the Tyrell family for the loss of Lord Renly Baratheon." Cersei's lips parted, but she saw Joffrey watching her with cruel delight. She bowed stiffly. "As my lord hand decrees." Olenna inclined her head, but her eyes still glittered, the ledger's threat in reserve. Brienne exhaled. Loras's fists unclenched. It was not the gallows for Cersei, but it was something. Later that night, Tyrion found Cersei alone, staring at the Blackwater's dark shimmer. "Word among the kitchens says you surrendered gracefully," he said. She snorted. "Graceful as a mare in mud. You still breathe. For now." She faced him. "They will come again. You know that, don't you? Each time they will take another piece. Then perhaps stop handing them blades." He softened his tone. "Let the city heal." She turned away. "The city will never heal. It only scabs." She walked into shadows, leaving him with the moon and the scent of smoke. Atop Aegon's hill, Marjorie laid Renly's crown upon an altar candle, brass melting over flame. She whispered, "Forgive me," and watched fire consume brass, watched molten gold drip like tears. The night wind carried the scent of roses and of something acrid. She inhaled both and felt more queen than ever. The following dawn, Qyburn's head rolled from the scaffold to land before a tanner's boy. The boy kicked it into the gutter where stray dogs fought for the tongue. Across the square, Brienne dropped a coin into a beggar's bowl and muttered a prayer not for Qyburn but for the beggar's supper. Loras watched the dogs until they stopped snarling, then turned his back on them all. In the Sept, Sansa knelt beside Septa Moel. She heard the city bells ring thrice and knew another life had ended. She whispered a prayer for the soul, though she did not know whom it should benefit. Then she rose, determined to write her mother a letter at once. The roses and lions roar together, but the thorns pierce hardest tonight. 3 leagues from Maidenpool, Davos knelt on the deck of Sea Scarab, staring west at clouds tinted ash-gray. Melisandre joined him. "Fire cleansed part of the rot," she said, "but a deeper ember lies beneath cold stone. It will burn." He clenched his hand around his luck bones. "Then we pray the realm survives the blaze." She smiled. "The realm never survives. Only stories do." And so the stories coiled. A lioness forced to share her den, a rose flourishing but wary of dusk frost, a wolf prowling northern snows, a craw. Ken gripping coasts, a stag shadowed by flame, a dragon's egg cracking beyond known seas. In King's Landing life resumed. Weddings, feasts, blood in alleys, songs in taverns. But beneath each laugh pulsed the memory of poison in a cup, of wildfire on a river, of truth carved in ledger ink. The realm balanced on the edge of secrets yet untold, and every whisper was a drop that might, one day, topple a king.